Hello, everyone, and welcome to another thrilling episode of the Days Grimm. My name is Brian Michael Day.
My name is Thomas Grimm.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right, and you?
I'm okay. I've been meaning to ask you, can you do me a favor?
I can.
Can you introduce this week's guest?
Joining us this week in another virtual podcast, tuning in, calling in, video chatting in, whatever you want to describe it as,
from the West Side,
California, the West Coast, Steve. All right, you're gonna have to correct me on this. Is it Werblun?
Werblun.
There you go.
I win.
My man.
I
My
win.
Man. Hi.
You
Hi,
suck,
guys.
dude. Steve, how are you, sir? Mr. Werblun, how are you?
I'm really good. Thanks, guys. How are you? You okay?
Doing okay in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we just had some crazy tornadoes that came through.
I know. I read.
Through.
Yeah.
It was, dude, it was, sir, with all due respect, it was pretty fucking gnarly. It was pretty wild.
As long as you're okay, I guess.
Yeah, we're good.
Yes,
I think Mississippi and Alabama got hit pretty bad, but they said it was like a once in a decade type storm. It was pretty gnarly.
Yeah, that's brutal. Weather's the worst.
How
yeah,
is the
especially out there in California where you're at.
How is California treating you?
Oh, it's the same as it always has. As I moved here 38 years ago, and I'm still here. So, this is my home now. I'm from Philadelphia originally.
So let's give our listeners a little bit of an elevator pitch of who you are and what you do.
Go for it.
Well, no,
you
for you. So
no, you
if you were going to pitch yourself,
okay, I'll be happy
who is Mr. Steve Werblun?
Okay, I'm a what they call a Renaissance guy. All right, I've done just about everything that can be done in the entertainment business, in front of and behind the camera, and that's the most succinct way to put it. But to define certain things that I've really, made a living out of is doing storyboards for feature films, music videos, TV commercials. I've worked on about 60 major movies, including The Day After Tomorrow and Batman and Robin, Along Came Polly, Equilibrium, so many. So there's those, and then there's all the music videos with everyone from Beyonce to that guy with the K, Kanye. And, I've been doing it forever. But the one thing that I did before that was I was the courtroom artist in Philadelphia before I moved here. And I was doing all the trials for the NBC affiliate there. And it allowed me to, I always wanted to, I wanted to work in the film business. And I think, I tried to figure out what the best way to get to the film business was. And I said I had to have my work and my name on television. And the only way that I could think of doing that was as a courtroom artist. And I had to figure out, now, how do I get that job? And that's a whole other story in itself that I'm actually writing a film about, because it all happened one night, New Year's Eve, 1976, at the Bicentennial in Philadelphia, and I went into a crowd of 250,000 people with the pad to draw the moving of the Liberty Bell. And it turned out that I couldn't draw anything. It was raining, and snowing, and sleeting. Well, I went home and I got a call from the newspaper. My friend had given me a press pass. That's how I got up close. And he said, they want your picture. And I didn't have a picture. It was raining. It was snowing. So I had to do it from memory. And I did it from memory. It took me till about dawn. And then I ran it over to the paper and they printed it. And it became a piece of history right there. And the very first question they asked me was, have you ever done courtroom art before? And that's the exact reason I went down there that night in front of 250,000 people, was to be recognized in that fashion and get hired. Now, that in itself is just an amazing story in itself. So I'm going to write a book about it.
So Steve, I don't like to interject very often, but I've got to stop you there. The moving of the Liberty Bell. Can you expand on that a little bit? What does that mean?
Well, in 1976, we had Bicentennial, and they had a major event in every city every day of the year, and the inaugural event was the moving of the Liberty Bell, and they took it out of Well, it was down in Independence Hall. It was been there for 250 years or 200
Right.
years. And so to accommodate the throngs of people that were about to enter the city to come see it during the bicentennial, they had to move it. They didn't want people tramping through the Independence Hall like that. So they had to move it to a special place about, a few blocks away. And that was the first event to announce, the bicentennial. That was the first thing. And so, like I say, I had a friend had a press pass, and he said, "Why don't you go down?" It was his idea. He said, "Go down there, and maybe they'll notice you. Somebody will notice you." I thought it was a far-fetched idea, frankly, and it was freezing. It was 18 below zero. It was
Sheesh.
raining, snowing, sleeting, everything. But I went down there anyway, and I couldn't draw, as I said. I mean, I just happened to get front row seats, and I was able to see everything that happened. And so then that's how it all worked out, And
So-
I came back
so-
and got this phone call. It just sort of sent my life into a different direction.
So one question I have about Philadelphians, I think it's the right term, Philadelphians.
That's it.
I don't know the proper way to ask this question, only to refer to when their sports teams win championships. They're an aggressive people. So moving the Liberty Bell 3 blocks down the road, did that actually make a difference? Or were there still like banks on fire and like
Looping street poles.
yeah, was shit still really wild?
Well, during the bicentennial, I mean, there was more police and guardsmen there than anywhere else in the country. So no violence or anything. It was just very, very planned out every day. It wasn't just in Philadelphia. They had these events all over the United States. It was just one each day, and the national press was there to cover it.
Right.
But the very first one was this moving of the Liberty Bell out of Independence Hall for the first time in 200 years, putting it in this other pavilion. And that's what I was doing there.
Awesome.
Nice, dude.
Well, and from memory's crazy because like they didn't have digital cameras then, so like a lot of stuff is either from memory or from a slightly out of focus photo.
Yeah.
Right.
A fucking
Yeah, and
Polaroid or something, you know what I mean? Like something analog.
Right.
Yeah.
What's analog?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I believe me, I thought about this. I do things from memory all the time anyway. I mean, it's not a big deal for me. But being there, I did happen to get the same front row seat that's in the picture. So anyway, we're not looking at that, so there's no point talking about it. But
No, that's so crazy though. That and then kudos to you for, I don't know what's wrong with your brain, but whatever it is, it's a very beautiful thing to be able to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, thank you. It has its downfalls, but it also has upfalls. Too.
Certainly.
You stumble forwards,
Yeah.
But
So, Steve, let's take a trip down memory lane here and rewind a little bit to Philadelphia. So you were born in Philadelphia?
No, I was born in New York, but I moved to Philly by the time I was 2 years old.
Gotcha. So you have no real
Philadelphia
memories
is
in
really
New
the place
York,
that I grew up. Yeah.
So what was growing up in Philadelphia like? Cold, of course, maybe a few riots, but like what was your childhood like in Philadelphia?
Well, it was fun. I mean, I had a lot of friends, and we did lots of crazy things. Tried not to stay bored. Just did all kinds of crazy things, got in a lot of trouble, not real serious trouble, but, just
Right.
kids, just playing around.
So
And I thanks to Facebook, I'm still in touch with these people today. So it's very interesting and very strange.
yeah, it's
And,
cool that like with social media you can stay in touch with people from any point of your life and see how
That's
they're
true.
doing and catch back up. So
And after, yeah.
your first experience of art, was that in school or was it like at home and you had a pad and paper? What was that like?
Well, I used to like them. I love movies, that's my thing. And I always copied the movie posters from the newspaper, on my own, with a big pen or whatever. And I did that all the time. I did movie credits. I make up movies, put the credits in there and all that sort of thing. But one day when I was in school, I forget what I think it was like third grade. They asked us to do a portrait, or not a portrait, a design for a Mother's Day card. And I did. I don't remember what it was, but whatever it was, the teacher took me by the hand and took me down the hall to 3 different classrooms to show them this picture. Now, without explaining to me why any of this was happening, I all wow thought I was in trouble. Where they're just leading me around. I'm going to go now. They're going to go to the principal's office. Okay. Well, it all turned out that they were just amazed at what I did. Silly little drawing. That was the first time I knew that there was beyond my family, my mom and my grandmother. They're always, oh, it's great. No, this is somebody outside of everything that just came to me in this fashion like that. And I really knew at that point, wow, I might be doing something pretty cool here.
What did you draw for your Mother's Day card? Do you remember what it was?
No, I have no idea. So it's probably just like a couple of things. Just the fact that I drew anything is probably beyond what they thought they'd get from anybody.
Right.
Like second or third grade. So, and I don't know what it was. I really don't remember, honestly. I've drawn so many things in my life that I cannot tell you. I forget the movies I've worked on. I have to be reminded.
So growing up through school, did you get in trouble for doodling on like all your papers and everything?
No, I took it to the next level, and I actually made a comic book in the style of Marvel comics, and it was all Jack Kirby, the artist Jack Kirby, his work. And so then when I was in 10th grade in high school, I decided to make a comic, and I drew it up, I wrote it up, 40 pages long, and it was all done in the style of Marvel comics back then, and wound up, having them copied. I had 600 copies, and I sold them all.
Wow!
To my high school, my fellow high school students.
What was it called?
The Neptunians.
Nice. So, like, you created the whole plot, the superhero-esque thing, and everything.
Yeah, everything. And I wrote it, I designed it, I captioned it out, and I also, to make things different, there were, 2 factions. They were coming to our planet from Neptune, the good and the bad, and I did all the superheroes, and I had another friend of mine who was really talented too. He did the bad guys, so it had a distinct look to it.
Where is that guy now?
Well, it's funny that you're having me do this podcast and it's this extensive, because I just finished a column that I wrote for a new magazine that's coming out called Space Monsters magazine. And
nice.
and it explains everything I'm telling you today, because what they asked me to do is tell them a certain story which encompassed my life, and in order to tell it, I had to tell all these little intricate factors and things, and that's what I'm doing with you. So it's interesting because I get it out there twice now.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny. All right, so what was the question again?
Well, no, I just asked where that guy was.
That made the villains. What's he doing
that's
nowadays?
Right, where Hank is. Okay. I have to jump forward now to tell you that I was fortunate enough in my life to meet a lot of people. This is part of that story. And one of them was Jack Kirby, the artist, king of Marvel Comics. He created everyone from the Hulk to Captain America, And he was the artist whose work I emulate the most and whose style I drew in. Well, I got to know him because when I came to California, my friend Peter knew another guy named Ray. Ray was writing the biography of this guy, Jack Kirby, and he had a book he was just about to finish. So I was invited over, and I got to know him and his wife, Roz, and I got to know them pretty well. So in one of the things that they did, they gave a speech at a comic convention, and I was invited, so I went. And while I was there with Jack, I ran into Hank, the guy I did my comic book with. All right. Now that was 20 years before this. And probably longer than that. Anyway, the point is, he was there with another comic book giant by the name of Neil Adams. Now, if you don't know comics, it's fine. I mean, but these are 2 of the biggest names in comic history.
Yeah, the biggest illustrators of the time.
So here we both hadn't seen each other in 20 years, yet were both in the same room in Los Angeles with two of the biggest comic book artists that ever lived.
Wow.
That is wild.
That's the way my life goes. And that's just one little story.
We're gonna get into it more.
No, really,
We're gonna get into it more.
It's just one little story, but yeah, no, that's where I ran into him. Amazing.
Do you
Amazing.
ever?
So I wanted
Steve,
to.
Do you ever look back on your life and you're just like, this isn't real? You know what I mean?
I don't have
like
to look back on it. I don't look back on it. I look at it every day and I say, is this real? If you knew what was happening with some of the things outside of it, well, just some of the things going on, it's just amazing to me, period. I for anyone, for some of this stuff to happen too. I mean, just, so I don't know.
Well, I just think it's wild that like people of your like growing up through school. I imagine like some people are handing out mixtapes of their music, cassettes, whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then like you're there with your comic book, passing a few out, selling a few. It's cool to see like multiple variations of like artists. In their
And I
craft.
didn't mean to step on you, Tom. So you
You're
go
good.
ahead. So sorry.
I just thought that was interesting that like I imagine that era of like people handing mixtapes that like they actually, like made.
Yeah.
And then like you have Steve here with this
Well, I
comic
used to
book.
do that too. Yeah.
You made
Pink Floyd were
mixtape. You
my
did
band.
music.
Well, I know a lot of musicians. I just know. I used to be a musician before I got fully involved in art, but it's. I only know music really well, and I know a lot of musicians really well, really, really well. So,
Well, you mentioned
Yes.
Well, we'll get into that here in
yeah.
the timeline. So, Steve, your first comic book goes out. You said you had 600 copies or 600?
in high school.
yeah, they had in those days what's called a mimeograph machine, and you had to roll them, and. My grandmother was nice enough to do it for me. So she did, there were 40-page books, times 600. I don't know, whatever that comes to. She did that many pages for me. And we stapled it together and sold them all except for maybe 2 copies. I have 1 left.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so that it even lasted this many years is amazing. But yeah.
So
It was pretty cool.
after high school, those sale, do you make another one or what happens next?
Oh, I just move on all the time. That's why I've been able to do so many different things. After I went to art school, and it was just, following all their
college?
curriculum. Well, it wasn't a college. It was the Husson School of Art. It was a 4-year program after high school. And it was one of the best schools in the land, if you wanted to do artwork, commercially. And so I went there for 4 years. I graduated and everything, and taught me a lot. That's
But
when
it
my career
wasn't
began.
college.
Well, it wasn't college, but it was all in place of college. It was just all artwork instead.
Were there
It
any
wasn't
memorable projects during those years that stands out to you to this day?
projects of mine.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, there's so many. It's just ridiculous. Yeah,
You
I'd
don't
stick
have
to my
one that
career.
you like look back on and you're like, I will never forget. You know
No,
what I mean?
because there are too many of them. The idea was that they asked you to do an illustration or a design or something every week, times, all these classes every week for years and years. I couldn't tell you, honestly. There's so many things. I mean, illustrating magazines, that's what they would do. They would teach you how to take a story out of Look magazine and illustrate it. And you're being taught by people that do that.
Was
the
it a
illustrations for, like-
combination of like art plus journalism? Like, are you learning to draw and then write a story to go with it?
Nope.
Awesome.
Strictly art.
So,
Strictly art.
He said, awesome.
well, I had a,
No. Now here's the thing. I guess I got to tell you this now because it's better just bringing it up. I went to high school in Philadelphia, a place called Central High School, and it was the second oldest public high school in the United States. It opened in 1838, and for all that century and a half, they never let a female in. It was always just men. That's it. And you had to have like an A average to get into this school. And well, I don't have an A average. I'm an artist. I'm
Right.
lucky to get by. And but all my friends were going there, and I wanted to follow them there. So they have what's known as a grandfather clause. If your dad or their dad went there, you can go automatically. And turns out that both of them went, so I got in automatically. And I struggled through these whole 4 years. I mean, this is when I did that comic book, I went to this high school. And the fact is that it was too rough. I would flunk every year a class and have to go to summer school, where I always do good,
Ah,
you know, but it just ruined my summers.
but they
In any
didn't kick
event,
you out though.
well, no, they kept me there and I graduated. And here's the funny part. 50 years later, 2 years ago, I get not invited, I was inducted into their Hall of Fame.
That's awesome.
A guy who almost didn't graduate. There's
Well,
only 140 people in
you
that
find those
Hall of
stories
Fame.
often though. Like it's often that like some of the most influential persons in this world are technically by whatever bullshit standard, sociographic standard, they're fucking degenerates. You know what I mean? For the most
Yeah.
part. But like these
Yeah.
people stop. Watch it. God bless you. But yeah, like people like Elon Musk, who is like borderline, he's just super socially awkward. He didn't do great in school. He's fucking sending somebody to Mars next year, is the plan that I last heard. Steve Jobs was a high school dropout and I think went to college later. But like, there's all these weird stigmas that like, if you want to be really influential and really good at something, I mean, I feel like you just got to break the fucking rules.
Yeah, well, you do whatever you can. That's what I found out. I mean, I've had, I don't know what to say. I mean, I've just been lucky too. I've been very, very lucky. Cards are always played in my favor for the most part. So, but
One thing I
yeah,
wanted to touch on, Steve, I had a grandpa that was really into art, and I would draw. I'd see a Pepe Le Pew, and I would draw a Pepe Le Pew looking at it, and he was like, "Well, draw this lamp." And he'd set a lamp on a table, and then I'd draw it, and he'd be like, "Well, there's no shadows in there." Like I said, draw this lamp. And he would bring people over to his house that would like do these billboards, and they'd have a projector, and they would project it on there. And like basically what I'm getting at is it's crazy how art's changed so much in the last 50 years to where like billboards projecting it on and tracing it and painting it are now like digitally done section by section. It's just like a wild transformation of the way art can evolve.
well, I'll tell you one thing. A lot of the people that wrote science fiction knew what they were writing about.
Or they
And
paved
that's
the
a
way
fact.
for the future.
I'll tell you what,
No,
Isaac Asimov was a slick motherfucker, dude. He knew what was going on, dude.
Yeah.
Do you
Clark
read
wasn't too stupid
do you
either.
read it all?
That's that.
Do you read much?
Not anymore. I used to.
What
I don't
did
read
you
it much anymore.
Okay, well we can get into that in a
I'm
bit.
just lazy. That's all. I'm just lazy.
Well, no,
watch
I think
television.
you're more busy than you are lazy, but we'll get to recreational stuff later. But
Okay.
so after college, quote college, what happens after you leave that art school? Where do you go? What do you do? And you're still in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah. Um, well, before I go any further, let me just say one thing. I was inducted into that Hall of Fame, and as a result, I was introduced to all these people. And the most important of those folks is this gentleman in Montreal who owns this virtual reality film company. And it is with he that I am producing this film. It's their idea. It's their project. They're just using me as my material. I'm the director. But anyway, that's what happened from going to Central and actually just being inducted into this Hall of Fame.
Hell yeah,
And there's
something so
By
small.
becoming an alumni of the school, you now gain access to the other alumni.
Yeah, that's wild.
Right. And all the alumni that are in the Hall of Fame are either inventors, famous writers, famous actors, governors, senators. They're all the highest echelon of academia.
That's awesome.
And what's really funny is this. There are 200 and I think by now, I think there's about 275 graduating classes that have come from Central since 1838. I was in the 229th class, but in any event, um, each class, not every class, obviously has a member in the Hall of Fame. There's only
Right.
140 in there out of hundreds of thousands of students, so I'm extremely honored. But um, the only class that has two members is mine, the 229th class. And the other friend of mine, he's my friend. I've known him forever. He's in it. He was first inducted before me about 5 years ago, and you'll know him when I tell you who he is. His name is Mark Brickman. Mark's the lighting director for Pink Floyd, and has been
Yep,
for
that'll do it.
since the Wall tour, and they're my favorite band ever that lived and breathed. So, to have him as being in there, and yet he's never done anything to help me meet them, even though I have. He's just but he and I are the only two members in this Hall of Fame. There's and considering the fact that this is a school that produces some of the highest academic students in the country, two artists are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And that's pretty wild.
That's outstanding. And also Pink Floyd fucking rips. Yeah, they're fucking sick.
I've seen him live 100 times, so we don't want to talk about Pink Floyd all night, though. But I've met them all, not through Mark either, but I've gotten to know them, and
they're mostly all still alive.
Well, Rick Wright is dead, and that's the keyboardist. He passed away 10, 15 years ago, and the leader Sid Barrett died a couple years ago. Of course, he hasn't been with them for 50 years. So
yeah, but there's still like three others of like the prime, right?
Yeah. They're all. Mark and I went to see one of them recently. But Nick Mason, the drummer, has his own band now.
Fuck yeah,
and
dude,
he
that's
has some of the guys
sick.
from Pink Floyd there, and so we went and hung out with Nick Mason backstage and everything for a while. It was fun, go with Mark, you go backstage, it's just
hell yeah, brother, that's awesome.
So Steve, after I was gonna say, what career path do you take after you finish this art school?
Okay, that's when I decided to become a courtroom artist. Gotcha. And I decided it didn't take very long at all to do it. And it's 1976 is when it was. I graduated in 74. For 2 years, I just did ads. People wanted an advertisement for a magazine or something, and that's what I did. But, as I tell you these stories, they all blossom into something completely different. Like, for example, real quick, in 1976, one of the ads that I had a contract to do was for a company in Pennsylvania called Color Systems Technology. And it was an up-and-coming video synthesizer that they had invented. All right. So they called me in and they asked me to do some advertisements for their company. All right, sure. Well, when I saw what I was advertising, that was it. I just said, listen, I got to play with this. And they said, well, sure. And they liked me and they let me do this for over a year. And I created what at the time was the only video synthesized animation ever created. It was all to some Pink Floyd music and everything else, It was wild.
Yeah.
And then in 10 years go by, and it's like he calls me from California. He tells me that he started a new company here, and that was the name of it, Color Systems Technology. They got the Ted Turner contract from, to colorize all the black and white films his library had contained. And that's the main function of this system he did. This is not the main, but the easiest way to apply its technology was to colorize a black and white image. And so I moved to California. I moved to Los Angeles in November 1985, and I've been here ever since.
What was that move like for you to go from Philadelphia, the East Coast, to the West Coast?
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. I mean, it's a kind of thing where you go. I was there on a visit prior to that just to see where I was going to be living, and then I went back a month later to live. And it was the kind of a place where when I went to visit, I could never imagine living there. Okay?
Why do you say that? Can you expand on that?
Well, it just seemed that it was so visual. It was so much happening everywhere. I mean, it was like I don't know what to do next. Whether it be going to a show or a club or a film or a museum or walking down Hollywood Boulevard or whatever it was. I mean,
Did it just
for me,
seem
it was
like you
all
were on vacation
for
the
a
whole
while.
time?
Not the whole time, but no, I had to work. But yeah, no, it did. But I wound up meeting a lot of people. I mean, and the girl that I'm living with today now is the young lady I met in my first week there. Here.
Nice, dude.
So-
Nice, dude.
This color synthesizer, you go out there to work with this company. Do they hire you to just add color to all these black and white films?
Essentially, that was my job. Yeah, I was they had 11 animators, of which I was one, and we all did the same thing. You put up a black and white, the film black and white on your screen, your TV screen, and then you add color with their program on top of it. There's certain ways to do that, obviously, and you had to do that not always frame by frame, but within a linear movement. So, without getting too technical, let's just say, it still took a long, long time to do it, and it was a brand new way of doing things. And that's what I was hired to do. And I worked on 2 films, The Absent-Minded Professor, Walt Disney, with Fred McMurray, and then The Miracle on 34th Street with Natalie Wood.
So when you work on those, are you credited in the film roll?
I don't remember. I think we were credited on a version that was colorized, yeah.
And then,
think
Steve,
so.
also, when we're talking about film or videography or any kind of like video anything, Tom understands everything that you can bring to the table. I don't.
Okay.
I'm the audio guy. He's the video guy, just so you know, for this podcast. So if you get into the weeds a little bit with video, it's fine. Tom,
let me dumb it down for you. We film in 4K 30 frames per second, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that means there's 30 photos per 1 second of video. Mm-hmm. So when he's talking about recolorizing these videos, there's 30 frames per 1 second. So he has to color all 30 of those frames to get 1 second of video. So if it's an hour and a half long, however many seconds are in an hour and a half times 30 is how many frames they had to color in order to get that
exactly.
That makes me actually, I don't know if that makes me more suicidal or homicidal, but that for sure upsets my tum-tum, and I don't like it.
Yeah, well, believe me, buddy, you and I have the same sentiment because,
He said, believe me, buddy.
Oh, my God, did I hate it. I hated it. And
so how long are you there? How long do you do that before you move on to the next thing?
90 days.
3 months?
That's it.
And then what's your next thing?
Then I decided, I better go back to drawing criminals in the courtroom.
I wanted to touch on this too.
I got to get back to drawing bad guys.
When you said what did I do career-wise after at art school, I did the moving of the Liberty Bell. That took me into doing courtroom art for the news and television stations for the next 10 years. And I failed to mention that. So let me just leave it there.
Well, I was going to say for the courtroom things, we're big fans of this comedy show called Kill Tony. They pull a comedian out of the hat. They get 60 seconds to do one stand-up premise, but they have 2 artists now that draw live during the show, and it's like a 2-hour long
wait
thing.
a minute. I just heard about.
Yeah,
because
Kill Tony.
My friend Mona is one of those artists.
That's awesome.
No, Mona, yeah. He has said Mona before.
Yeah.
I swear to God, yeah. I've seen Mona on camera.
She was the ABC affiliate while I was the NBC CNN affiliate.
Was there any rivalry there between friends?
No.
You two never like met out by the bike racks and like went fisticuffs?
Nah, none of that stuff. We all had our own bullshit to deal with,
Well, I was just gonna say, I think it's interesting. Some of these artists, like the court session only goes on for a short amount of time. Like, and after that session, you don't get to like finish your paint or drawing, do you?
Well, sure you do. Why wouldn't you?
I don't know.
You're not part of the court. You're only there to look at it.
I have courtroom drawing questions, okay? Because, like, all right, we're going to get into the nitty gritty. I want to get, there's this one highlight point that I want to get to, but before we get there, I want to just, like, courtroom drawing in general. They always, like, anytime they're, like, drawing a witness or a suspect or whatever, and the crowd attending the courtroom is in the backdrop or the jury is in the backdrop, I feel like maybe we're spending too much attention to detail on the jury or the people attending. I saw one not too long ago where, like, the criminal or the person on the stand or whatever, they had, like, this not great mustache. Not a good drawn mustache. But then, like, 4 rows back in the crowd of people attending, there was a lady, like, in a blue hat with a beautiful bird feather sticking out of it. And I'm like, if you would have just taken a little, that detail and put it on this guy's mustache, like, what are we doing? Or was his mustache that shitty? I don't know. But, like, do you focus, my question is, do you focus... Is there any kind? Do you even pay attention to the things in the background? Does it matter? Or
Well, yeah, you do, but I pay attention to what's happening. So if the background happens to be part of what's happening, I put it in there. But if it's not, there's no reason to distract the eye. And most of the time when I'm in there, I'm drawing somebody that's sitting there on the witness stand. And I can draw other things too. They're not moving. But then there are times when somebody starts to cry, or they fall down, or they are experimenting with showing you how somebody was killed. You got to grab those moments immediately and draw them. They have to be done in a few seconds, and then you just go over it until it's finished. But you have to be aware of what's happening in the courtroom all the time. You can't just sit there and draw like you're not there.
Where do these drawings end up?
Yeah, where do they go? That's a good question.
Right over there.
I've got them all back here. Got them all
back
back
by
here.
case number.
I do. I have them all. And
no, but I mean, as far as, like, the legal system goes, like, once you've finished a trial or whatever, or a day of a trial, however long you've been contracted for, where do all of your sketches for that day or for that trial wind up at? Do you just get copies? Do they get copies? And
No. It's done strictly for television cameras. That's it. When I'm done, I go. The news van pulls up close to the curb, and I paste these drawings up on the side of the news van, and they film them on video. And then they have
that's it.
That's it. And then they have editing booths in the truck, so that they can go in there. The reporter can go in there and edit the piece. It's a 2-minute piece with my drawings in it where they want them to be. And they just send that whole thing back to the station, and the station puts it on live, puts it on their broadcast. That's
I thought there was, like, some more.
Well, I guess also while we're talking about it, I'll pull up on screen in editing right now some of the photos you drew from the OJ trial. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Sure.
How did you get involved, first off? How did you wind up in the OJ trial?
Well, like I said, I've been very fortunate, and I was for years, 10 years, from 1987 on, I was 8 years, I guess, up to the trial. I was the courtroom artist for both CNN and NBC News and the local NBC affiliate. That's 3 stations on a regular basis, 2 of them the major networks in the country.
Shit, yeah.
So anytime anything went to court that was newsworthy, I already knew that I was going to be there. I already knew it. And as soon as I heard about this trial, this thing, I knew I was going to be there.
Did you watch it live on the news?
Which part live?
The Bronco driving down the highway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And like that moment you knew that you were going to be on the
weekend afternoon, I don't remember what day it was, Saturday, I think. But yeah.
God, he was a hell of a running back. Jesus Christ,
yeah,
wasn't he?
I guess.
He was a hell of a running back. Shout out to the Buffalo Bills, dude. No, so you didn't have somebody like hook you up with this, like, you know what I mean? You just kind of landed in this spot to be the sketch artist, and then were you there the whole trial?
Do you remember how I became a courtroom artist?
The buddy that recommended you go to the Liberty Bell.
Yeah,
that's right. And I got noticed out of 250,000 people in the rain and snow, and they did for me exactly what I had gone down there to have happen. That's because I've already been fated, so it didn't surprise me at all that I'd be doing this.
So, and are you with the trial the whole time?
Yeah, I was there in court, at least 90% of it. 90% of it. But the thing that really, that I remember the most about it is what they did with me. That was 24/7 broadcasting of that trial, even when they weren't in court. It was all night long.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they needed people to talk to. And, well, they found one of them in me. Not only was I the artist, but I was present for all the major things that were going on in the courtroom. And
you're well spoken.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, you're very natural with dialogue. I know we're speaking through the internet, and it's kind of a pain in the ass, but like, you do have good dialogue. You don't struggle to find ways to describe scenarios.
I appreciate that. It just came natural to me, and it was something. I mean, everybody wants to be an actor, I never really wanted to be, but I thought it'd be fun. But I always wanted to work in the movie business, So, but when they did this to me, and they started to do it every day, not once or twice, but then like 3-4 times a day, then it got ridiculous. I mean, I became another person. I mean, I was a regular on the Today Show,
What is
the window here, Burbank, and the window here, LA, and just the two of us were, or New York, and then Mount Burbank, whatever it was, I forget. But the fact of the matter is, and then I was even a guest on the Jay Leno Tonight Show. So.
That's awesome.
Jay Leno is fucking dope. I'm a big car guy. He's a big car guy.
He just came to Indianapolis.
Yeah, he almost died in a really bad car accident.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Shout out to Mr. Leno, just out here fucking snapping dicks. That dude's a killer. No, but my question to you, I want to kind of focus on the OJ trial for a few more moments. But like, during the trial, when
it took up a year of my life, you may as well take a few minutes.
Golly, it was a whole year?
Longer.
During that process, were you focused on only it and you couldn't work on any other projects?
No, I worked on other projects too. I was storyboarding a film or two, and I also did other court cases from time to time.
So when a storyboard for a film comes, does a writer come up to you and they're like, "Hey, I got this layout of a film," and you have to help them?
That's pretty much the way it would be, but it's not. I have an agent, and the agent would acquire me this work. They'd be actively promoting my work, not just mine, but others too. And so then you'd get, it became an established entity that this is where, major filmmakers get their storyboard artists from. It's this, and there's one other agency, and I was part of Famous Frames, is what it was called. Nice. And so they, that's how it worked. They'd call up the agent would send me over to a meeting with somebody, and big director, and then you get a phone call back the next day. Yeah, we want him, or
Does everybody in California have an agent, or how did you get hooked up with your agent?
Well, anybody of talent, real talent, and money with talent, it's up to a certain point needs management or an agent, because there's no way to get to people. I mean, this is how it's done. You know what I mean? It's just been a protocol for a long time.
Yeah, and I feel like that's pretty common. Like, people have people. Like, oh, it's really nice to meet you. I'll have my people call your people. And there's almost zero direct dialogue when you're closing or initiating any kind of deal, anything that's of substantial effort. Anyways,
it's always done with an agent. Yep.
And then back to the OJ trial. Jesus Christ, Tom, you gotta fucking tune in, dude. No, but so
the only job, honestly, the only job that I never got as a result of having an agent was a courtroom artist. I didn't have an agent for that. Nobody represented me for that. I didn't need one.
Are there during the OJ trial? Are there multiple? Oh, did we lose you? Okay, no. Are there multiple sketch artists there also working alongside you, or are you like the sole sketch artist?
Some days I would be, but very rarely. NBC News I was there for NBC and CNN. CBS had Bill Robles, ABC had Mona Edwards, and that there was another woman for Channel 11, Fox News, but that was it. And
Did
then,
you all draw in like a similar style, or do you have your own uniqueness throughout it?
yeah, no, we all have our own way of doing things, and I always had a comic book style, It's always the way I worked. I just drew illustrations like crazy, so I could draw the wide shots and put everybody in it, and I did. So it depends on which drawing you're looking at, but I don't know. You can see what I'm talking about.
What were some of the more difficult things? And I know earlier in the interview you had mentioned you're really good at drawing from memory, and the way you had described being a courtroom sketch artist, something happens and then you need to be able to immediately take that in and then translate that information later also while other things are happening in the courtroom. But like, what was one of the more cumbersome moments that you had during the OJ trial, like trying to keep up, or like a certain thing happened, or a particular day, or a particular witness, or whatever?
You're talking about a year, 13 months of trial, 4 months of jury selection.
I'm asking a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it reminds me of the question. It reminds me of the question that I hear on the U2 DVD where Phil Janot, Rattle and Hum, he says, "So what happened after the tour? And then after the tour, you recorded the new album, and then you went out on the road again, and then you came back in the studio and you did that. So what was that like?"
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
And then Bono just goes, "I don't fucking know,"
Well, he was on a lot of coke. Well, we'll edit that out.
What makes you think I wasn't,
Yeah, we'll edit that out. Don't worry.
No, my days of coke ended long before I went to the OJ trial.
But anyways,
God.
So you don't have like a particular day that stuck out, or maybe even a particular month or an event, or you don't even have to know the day
or the glove day.
No, I know.
Were you there for the glove day?
Yeah, of course. And everybody said, "What?" Yeah, no, I was there for that.
Everybody at a bar after you're going out was like, "Hey, let me buy you a drink." Did they really?
Really? It's like, what the fuck was that?
No, okay. And then honestly, can we just bullshit about the trial for a minute? Can we just enjoy the fact that Mr. Simpson gets off from killing his wife, and then he gets off, runs free from that, and then gets arrested.
Well, there's more to this.
He gets arrested for like selling his own.
No, you're wrong. Somebody broke into his house and stole a trophy, and he ran them down and off the road, I believe, right?
Is that what happened?
I believe so, yeah.
Is that what put him in prison?
Yeah, and then he wrote a book called, I don't remember the name, but I read it, and it's basically like,
if I would have done it, this is how I would have done it.
Yeah.
No, something like that, yeah.
Can you believe that shit?
I wouldn't read a word he ever wrote unless it was his signature on the confession.
Yeah.
Well,
he said double jeopardy. Got it.
Gave a family. The family sued him for some proceeds, and actually over half the proceeds went to the family.
So fucked up. All right, Steve, I gotta ask, Mr. Werblun.
I want to interject real quick here.
Yeah.
I did have a wide shot of the courtroom which had all the attorneys in it and OJ seated at the table with them. And there was a day during I don't remember when it exactly happened. It was early in the case, and everyone was let out of the courtroom for a few minutes while the defense team sat there at their table. So I went up to them and I asked them if they knew me already, but everybody knows.
Yeah.
So I said, "Could you guys sign this for me?" And they did. Everyone, including OJ. And that picture I sold recently for a lot of money.
Oh man, I bet.
Okay, Steve, come on, dude. What's a
And
lot
I
of money?
sold
No,
it
I'm joking.
after being, no, I'm serious here. I sold it after being on a fucking podcast.
Wow.
It was
Steve, do you have
funny.
nice
I'm
feet?
just thinking
Let
about
me
this now
see your
as you're
feet.
telling
We're
me.
gonna
No,
sell your
no.
socks after this podcast. No, I'm
Okay.
joking. No. While we're talking, this is my last question on the OJ trial.
Okay.
I know we probably should have spent more time on this, but we have more we need to cover because I know you've got more stuff you want to talk about for sure. This is it. This is my last question. OJ,
Okay.
did he kill his wife or not?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, that's it. Tom?
I don't
Hey,
think it
listen,
took rocket science to figure that.
let me just, no. Let me tell you one thing, okay? And this is what people fail to remember, that DNA, which is the key to solving every fucking crime in the world now, okay?
Yeah.
In 1993 and 1994 was an unknown commodity.
Yeah.
And in order to explain how DNA could finger someone, it took the defense I don't remember exactly how long it was, but it was about 3 weeks
It was
of
wild,
testimony. 3 long weeks. And the jury was falling asleep. You know,
They're losing
what they absorbed.
traction.
It was so horribly boring. But you see, what they failed to realize is what they were being taught something, and they didn't matter to them, obviously. So, but yeah, that's how I know that he did it, because it was his DNA on everything that was criminally involved.
He's a lucky son of a bitch.
So, Steve, you
I guess.
mentioned
I don't know
during
what
the
he is.
OJ trial you were working on some movie stuff, storyboards, etc. What
Mhm.
and like you even hinted in your elevator pitch of like all this stuff that you've done. So like, let's go after the OJ trial. Is a movie next, or is like a music next?
Well, I never walked away from courtroom art. I was always double dutying, so I never know when I'm going to get called to court. It's not a regular gig. If there's a trial like OJ, then yeah, sure, it's every day. But you don't know, because I would cover pretrial hearings and arraignments and things that happened that morning. So I would not
Right.
know. I would get a call at 11 o'clock in the morning, and they just say, "Look, be at this courtroom at 2:30," and that's it. I'd go and boom. So that's how most of it really was. The O.J. Simpson trial was a very much different, because I did know where I was going to go, every day, and I did. And the other two cases that were like that, well, there were three. One was, well, two actually. The Rodney King trials, when they went to federal trials, there were two of them, and I covered them every day. And then the Menendez brothers. So I was there quite a bit with them too.
They just did a
So,
documentary on them.
Oh, the Menendez
yeah, I know. I
brothers.
see it here. It's that
God.
literally on the screen behind me here. I was going to check it out. But, I
Holy
get sick of hearing
fuck.
about all that shit. I heard it all for real in the courtroom enough times to know what really happened. You know what I mean?
So I'm 35, right? Tom just hit 30. So I was born in 90 while these dudes are being convicted. Like,
Right.
I don't remember it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when this is such a corny question, but I'm like you were just saying, I mean, how much does it irritate you when Netflix pays $30 million to put out a documentary on the Menendez brothers or O.J. Simpson or whoever else, influential court cases? Does that just like, do you even go out of your way to watch these things, or are you just like bothered by it?
No, it doesn't bother me. I mean, no, some of them I'll watch. I've seen one of the People versus O.J. Simpson I watched. That was good. They actually hired me too, so I had a reason for watching.
Oh, you were
just-
on that Netflix?
The one that they did, the People versus O.J. Simpson. I don't think it was Netflix. I forget who did it originally, but yeah, they hired me to do courtroom illustrations for for the show as opposed to, a newscast. So they gave me
Oh,
the
shit.
actors that I had to illustrate as opposed to the people, like Cuba Gooding Jr. was OJ. I
Yeah.
forget who was Marsha Clark, Sarah Paulson or somebody. I don't remember. Anyway, the bottom line was
Oh,
that's what
that was, yeah, that's right. I remember that. That was an actual, that went to theaters. That was an actual film. Yeah. I remember that.
I was gonna ask Steve, was there ever like these trials? Like, surely there's some like something that carries on with you after the trial. Like, do some of these mess with like your mental health?
No.
Okay.
No, I like I say, I mean, after doing it for 30 years, you have heard everything.
Yeah, you kind of get numb to it.
And when you're going to go in that room, you're going to hear some gruesome shit. And you just have to bear with it and just deal with it. I mean, it became that. I had some things happen to me in my life, again, that kind of were precursors for this. In 1970, when I was just coming, well, it doesn't matter. I was coming home from school, and this our neighborhood was white. Okay, this is like 1970, and this black kid comes running past me, past my house, right through my breezeway, where I live, and I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" So I don't know, didn't think about it.
What the fuck was that?
Right. Well, then about 10 seconds later, my neighbor is screaming at the top of his lungs that my mother's been stabbed. My mother's been stabbed. And sure enough, Libby, my next door neighbor, a lady in her 70s, white hair, she was laying there on her doorstep, blood coming out of everything. So I ran after this guy, but he was obviously gone. And well, that was the beginning of, for me, and this again is long before I started to do courtroom art. This is when I was just a kid. I became involved in a major murder trial, and I was their key witness.
God. What do you?
So I had a very big introduction, so to speak, to this whole kind of scenario.
Have you ever, during your courtroom contracts, have you ever just met? Have you ever just met or seen somebody that you felt was just like pure evil? Now, 1970, the closest reference I can think of would be like a Charlie Manson. People said that when they met him, pure evil. Tom O'Neill wrote a really great book. I don't know if you're familiar, called Chaos. If you haven't read it, I suggest it. But
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
Yeah, when people met Manson, they said when they made eye contact with him, they felt the evil. Did you maybe feel that with the Menendez brothers, or maybe anybody that you had to like, because I'm assuming, like, detailing these guys as you're drawing?
Yeah, just one person stands out in that regard, as the only one that really made me feel that way, and tried his best to intimidate me, and that was Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker.
You met Dickie Ramirez? Jesus Christ.
Richard. And what's funny is the guy on Kill Tony was talking about how he used to do hair with.
I fucking know. Dude, so, oh my God, Steve, we've got so much. We're going to have to fly to California and do another interview. Next one's got to be in person because there's just too much to cover in an hour. But okay,
you're not even scratching the surface, but that's okay.
No,
you're doing a good job,
You had to sketch Ramirez.
I still have a couple of them here.
Wow.
He'd stand there, he'd sit there like this and look at me.
Can
Just
you
looking at
shoot
me,
us?
not anybody else.
Can you shoot us a couple of those sketches?
I have to go. Well, there's somewhere. I don't know if I have
not, it's not a big deal.
We
but
have a little bit of time before this releases, so you got some time.
but
I want to skip the courtroom stuff to go more towards these movies and music videos and what's happening next. So, forget about the courtroom art. When's the first time that you work on a movie?
It was 1996. It was a film called Desperate Measures with Andy Garcia and Michael Keaton.
And what
And it
did
was
you do in
directed.
that?
Well, I was a storyboard artist.
Okay.
I worked with the writer and the director. Well, not the writer on this, just the director. And yeah, I just storyboarded everything.
So are
The
you like
actual
riding the ass of all the directors of photography? Like, hey, this wasn't in the storyboard. This wasn't the angle we
yeah,
wanted.
sure. Me? No, 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 no. The first movie I did wasn't made. It was called Pathfinder. Jan de Bont, the director of Twister and Speed, he was the director I worked with, but it never got made. It's just that happens from time to time, and I storyboarded most of the film too. So, I mean, they put a lot of time and effort into it, but after about 5 months of that, they didn't happen. So the first movie I had that was actually shot was called Desperate Measures, which is with Andy Garcia and Michael Keaton. And so that was the first one.
Some would say the best
Baz, what was his
Batman.
name? I can't remember his name right now, but Barbet Schroeder. That's the director's name, Barbet Schroeder.
And then, does like after you do one film that gets published, is that how your name gets out there and more people hit up your agent?
Well, again, it's always up to your agent because your agent is the one who knows you. Nobody else knows you. If you've worked on enough films and people have raved about you, yeah, they'll know about you. But for most cases, I mean, they only use who's available, and they go to these agencies to find those people. All right, so if I'm busy, they go to somebody else, whatever. So, but everybody in the stable of artists that they would have to choose from are all of similar caliber, you know. So, and they all function, they all focus primarily on doing storyboards for films. So, the camera knowledge is there. The whole know how to do it is there. So, and film storyboards are different than advertising storyboards, like for TV commercials, because those are given to you shot for shot. You have to do exactly what they tell you. But it's not like that as much for film. Video also, music videos, it's kind of a combination. But yeah, films is what I really have a free hand in.
Have you got to meet
Sometimes.
Quentin Tarantino?
Nope, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Do you subscribe to the fact that Quentin Tarantino's might be a psychopath?
A psychopath. Why? Who'd he kill?
I don't think that.
That's just my personal opinion. I don't know that I subscribe to it, and I think I might be the only one, mate. Now that I'm hearing it out loud,
Yeah, I would say that.
No, he's an artist. He's a great
But
open.
it's the way he
artist,
does it. It's the violence in his films, the brashness, and then also the non-chronological timelines. I feel like I'm talking to somebody in a psych ward, and they're giving me extremely great detail on this really phenomenal story. I don't know. I feel like he might be a little, maybe not psychopath, but like unhinged slightly.
I agree with you, but I think most artists are unhinged. I know I am.
Yeah, and I think I'm not, and I think I'm just jealous is the problem.
Let's after movies, do movies and music kind of go hand in hand in this timeline?
Yeah, they're done at this. One like to do a music storyboard. Storyboards for a music video would only take a few days, as opposed to a featured film, which would take months.
Does the music artist already have like an idea in their head that they give to you?
Yeah, and I don't work with them anyway. I work with their director.
So you
There's a guy
weren't
named
in direct
Frank,
contact with Ye or Beyonce. You were in contact with their team.
Well, no, I worked with them on set, but I don't call them up and say, "Hey, how's it going?"
Right.
Do you,
No,
do you
the guy-
support Kanye West's most recent?
No, let's not.
Joking. Hey, I'm only joking, but Kanye West is getting wild on Twitter the last few weeks.
I
just
wanted to
think
talk
that,
about the creatives of
he ought
the.
to be treated the way he's telling people. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into him. He's an asshole.
Yeah,
I just
no, that
wanted
was
to
my
talk
bad. I'm
about
sorry.
these artists that you've
Hey,
met.
Kanye,
Like,
nice to meet you again. But you turned out to be an asshole. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was mainly gonna go into like these aspects of like artists that you meet, and you're like, wow, you have a unique brain. Is there like a certain like asset or like thought process that like you try to tap into, or like skills you try to pick up from these artists along the way?
I mean, the people that I know.
Well, like doing something for Beyonce or Kanye or these movies, like are there people that like you're like, oh, you do this really well. I'd like to be better at this.
In other words, they hire me for their job. You mean?
Yeah, but then like you end up taking away something that you use as like a regular basis jumping point.
Well, there's just so many. There were so many opportunities, that I just went with them. I don't know. I didn't know. I was crazy busy for a long time. Worked with a lot of artists. I can't even remember all of them, to be honest with you.
But there's none of them that like stick out where you met them and something about
Creative process.
their process or their work ethic or anything like stuck with you, like, wow, this guy is spending an hour a day on a pogo stick just so he can, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
is
no,
there
I
anything?
get it.
Yeah,
Well,
like he only smokes weed and drink.
yeah, the only real association I had that had any meaning beyond these, once upon a time gigs was a group called B2K. I don't know if you remember them or know them. They're a
I've
rap
heard
group
of it.
from about 20 years ago, a band of kids, B2K. Anyway, they found me, they liked me, and they wound up using me only for all their storyboards, for all their music videos. They did a feature film, so I did every frame of that. They did a lot of that, and so for me, those guys were pretty cool. I got to know them all, and it was a little bit different than the normal case when I just go draw something and see ya. You know,
Yeah.
I'd be on set a lot of times. Like when I remember when I was doing a Beyonce video, and I was just on one of the sets that they were going to film, and she comes walking in. She's there with about, I don't know, 8 other girls. Her entourage. And then we sat down together and we talked for like a half an hour. I mean, how
Very
many people
beautiful
have an
woman.
opportunity like that? So
Yeah.
pretty cool. And she wasn't as big as she is now. She was just beginning, you know. But no, I mean, that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm so used to meeting people, and I'm very at ease with it. I mean, like I said, I've been very lucky. I've met most of the people in my life that have inspired me and influenced me, and I've got to meet them and know them.
So it's very
In
hard for
fact,
you to get starstruck nowadays.
it's so to speak, yeah, so to speak.
So
The I still do, but it's not as easy. Yeah, it's just not as easy.
do you have a favorite
But yeah,
medium
no,
of
this
art?
just me,
Yeah.
film. Yeah, unquestionably film. I mean, I watch movies as much as I can. I working on movies as much as I can, and not anymore because I'm semi-retired. But and I kind of moving on into this other field now too. So, but
Before
yeah,
we
no,
go into
I
this
just
other field, I want to talk about how, like I mentioned earlier, how like the mediums of art has developed. So like it's less pencil and paper, more digital nowadays. Have you had like a transition into that, or is it still more pencil and paper for you?
for me, it's always on paper. I've never been computer savvy at all. That I'm involved in this film the way that they want to make it happen. This immersive film is just it's wild because again, I'm just an artist. I'm just a writer, and I conceived of the story, and I've got it in my mind how to do it. And but to actually have it happen, it's like, oh my god. So yeah,
So let's talk about
well,
this film as we're in the last like third of this episode. Let's so this film company hits you up, they hear about your life story, or how does this work?
oh, in Canada.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was inducted into this Hall of Fame 2 years ago, and like I said, it's extremely prestigious. And certain people heard about me, being in there and wanted to meet me. And so I met them, and the one of them is this guy in Jean Nicole. He's in Montreal, and he owns this company that makes virtual reality entertainment. And we didn't know how to utilize my artwork. Okay, we just had no idea what should I do. I don't know.
And by the
Music video.
artwork, are you talking about like what you've been posting on Instagram with like you and the woman in your mind and all these sketches, or?
No, it's this is taking a film and filming it with different cameras in different places and piecing it together in a way that's never been done before. And I mean, they can do it now, but no one has done anything with a narrative structure to it. No story, so to speak. It's just
Gotcha.
documentaries and music videos and things of that nature. Cool stuff. Very cool. Amazing stuff. Have you ever seen immersive entertainment before?
A little bit.
I've not.
We got a VR headset for my kiddo a little while ago, and we've played around with a little bit of it. And I know that the movie aspect is like growing and it's newer. I have a few buddies that are designing stuff to be used in virtual reality, which is crazy. I got a buddy that his full-time job is they give him a real-world item like a camcorder. And they're like, all right, now make this in VR. So he has to like make all the specs, but then it also has to work. So like you have to open it up in VR and it record like a camcorder in VR.
Yeah, it's wild stuff. Really wild stuff. And again, I am not a technician. I am not, anybody to get involved with all that crap. I'm visual,
Right.
and so I've written a story. And
Was
I'm
this the
also
first
able
story
to,
you've written?
Oh, no. I've got 12 full-length feature scripts that I've written. 12.
Wow.
This was
So
the
what
this
out
was the
of
second
the
one that I finished. Yeah. What's that?
what out of the 12 that you've written, or maybe even out of the 2 that you finished, what about this one stuck out or like took the head?
Well, it's a fantasy. Number one, it's science fiction. It's got a great story. It's always been my favorite script of the ones that I've written, and it seems that this company would be perfect. It would be perfect for this company to use if that's what they wanted to do. So they asked us to read the script, and I don't know if you know what it's like to have one person read your script. That's hard enough. But when you have 8 people reading it, that's like a celebratory thing. I mean, so anyway, they all got back to me and they all said, yes, we want to do this. This is
There
what
weren't
we
like
want
any
to do. We
big
want to make
tweaks or
this.
cuts that they asked?
They didn't ask anything. They just
Wow.
said, we want to make this film.
What is the
And then
next step to something like that?
money.
So like crowdfunding?
No, I need investors. I need investors. I really do. We figure it's going to cost about $80 million. So that's quite a bit of money. But there's different things that, make it more worthwhile to do something like this than just maybe a regular film. It has its advantages in that regard. New technology and yeah, there's a lot. It's such a talking point because everything has to be shown in a dome, a rounded roof structure, like the Sphere in Las Vegas.
Right.
That would be a perfect venue for this. But again, and I don't know if an audience can even endure 2 hours of this. It's so overwhelming visually and orally. I mean, it's an amazing thing. So that may have to be like in the old days where you had serials. You go to see this thing here had a cliffhanger at the end, and then you came back the next time to see the second part and so forth. That would probably be one of the ways we would consider it. But again, I mean, we're at the very, very beginning stages of all this. I got my first very tiny investment from a gentleman in, of all places, Beirut, Lebanon, and he's gotten me started on, beginning to prepare things that we can use to sell this film.
Right.
So it'll be very soon that we start getting out there with this, project. I mean, it's been on the drawing board now for 2 years.
And you're pretty hands-on, like from the cover art and everything of the process?
Well, I did at this point. They've put together an entire brochures, to sell the thing, and it's utilizing my artwork. Yeah, I designed a logo for the film. I did a whole scene. I storyboarded a whole scene, so that's all in there, and just different visual references to help point them in the right direction of what we're doing.
It is this.
But yeah,
This
I wrote the
makes me
script, and I also did all the storyboards, not for the whole film, because just for the opening scene,
right.
and logo design and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, it's enough to show people in a pitch, the pitch deck, which is what they
Right.
call it. So that's what we've got ready to go here.
One thing I think that's interesting about this. Have you ever heard of Pharrell the artist?
Is
Who?
he also the rapper?
Yeah,
Pharrell. Yeah, I
He's
know
a-
the
Oh
Pharrell.
yeah.
They're working on a documentary about his life, and they filmed
can't
it
wait.
all. They filmed it all
Yeah.
normally, so like live action, whatever.
Yeah.
But then they're taking that and they're converting it into a Lego movie. So like that's how he wanted the documentary filmed. He said, "I only want a documentary if it's done in Lego style," and they're doing it. But
Oh
they had
my
to
so awesome,
God.
dude.
That's
they had to
fucking crazy.
right, and they
Nice.
filmed it normal,
That's
and then they
crazy.
made like a Lego version of it. Each scene.
Oh no. That's
Oh
insane.
no. I think
That
that's
is really fucking insane. Oh
but
my God.
Steve, before you and I, first off, Steve, you and I both agree. We're on the same page here. I think that's apeshit crazy. But also, Pharrell's a legit artist. If that's what he wants.
That's okay, but what can I say? I mean, that doesn't give you the right to just be a fucking asshole, And
Yeah.
if that's the way you think you are, then I guess you're an asshole.
If you just wake up and you want a documentary made about your life, but it has to be in cardboard paper
I think
with
they
stop
approached
motion,
him.
all you, Chief.
Yeah.
I get it.
I think they approached him. He talked about it on the guy that wrote the Creative Act,
That's
Rick Rubin. He
great.
talked about it on Rick Rubin's podcast.
Oh, okay, nice. Rick Rubin's the GOAT.
You're talking about a 5-year project,
Yeah, that's crazy. The amount of
animating
animation that goes-
Legos.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my God, that's funny.
crazy. Hey, speaking of getting not sponsorships,
Like trying to
what
find
did he call them?
investors. for your film.
Investors. So getting investors. Obviously Marvel doesn't have to do this. Like they just have Disney or Fox or whoever in their pocket. But like for these major motion pictures that are happening now that have no Marvel name attached to them, like how are some of these other major $100 and $200 million projects getting done? Like how do they get their investors? How does it typically, because we don't even know how that happens. How does
it's
that
like
happen?
I wrote that short film during COVID. How do I get eyes on it to get picked up?
Yeah, how do you
Right.
meet investors? How do you make that happen?
Well, it's all who you know, obviously. And I do know a lot of people, but this is my first attempt at producing anything. So, and I have the assistance of a major company and other people doing it with me. I have seasoned producers working on this with me. I brought them on. And they believe in the project so much that they're not being paid anything either.
Does
we're
that
all
make you
just in
feel
it for-
good that like a whole bunch
Yeah.
of other people believe in your dream?
Well, that's what's propelling me forward. I don't know how else to say it. It's just more exciting than anything. It's because it's more people than, it's not in my family. There's just people that want to work with me. And that's something that, you just don't take for granted. So, it's pushed me full forward on this thing here. And, so anyway.
What
Now, I think, go ahead.
I was gonna just ask, like, what advice do you have for people? And I guess this comes in multiple parts. Here.
Storytellers.
Like, well, I was gonna say, like, what advice do you have for somebody that's getting into drawing? Like, we'll just do it part by part. So, like, what advice do you have somebody that like really likes drawing, but they don't know what to do next? Maybe it's just a hobby.
Well, you have to draw. That's first of all, and just draw and draw until you feel comfortable that what you've drawn is good. It's going to have its own style to it, which is yours, and but you need to do things that are whatever you want to draw. Just you have to keep doing it. That's the only
Whatever
thing.
excites you.
Yeah, right. I mean, comic books are what excited me when I was a kid, so that's what I drew. And
And did you
I
mainly
went
just
as
draw, or did you ever paint or any other mediums?
I had art classes, and I did paint, but it was not my thing. I can paint as a watercolorist, with the brush on pieces of paper in front of me. But when it comes to canvas and things, I don't get into it.
Gotcha.
I don't
What
get it.
advice do you have for somebody that's like storyboarding? So, like, I wrote a short film during COVID, and it's short, and I need to expand on it more. But like, I started drawing a storyboard. What advice would you give to somebody that's like taking text to storyboard?
Well, think like a director. Just because somebody walks across the screen doesn't mean that the camera has to be parallel to them, horizontal as they walk past. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be there. Your camera can be anywhere. It depends on the mood of the scene and what you're trying to, convey. And these scenes only last for a few seconds anyway. So, but what is it that you wanted to do? How are you going to do it? Guy walking
Right.
down the street. Well, I'll put an overhead shot over him, and I'll watch him walking among the crowd of people on the sidewalk or something. Whatever. The point is, you try to do something that is, without being too wild and crazy, is just more imaginative than a guy walking just down the street.
Is
That's
there a
all.
big difference from movies to music videos?
No, it's only in terms of budget, and yeah, because, well, first of all, you're filming something theatrical that's been made specifically for a stage, so to speak. So, again, I mean, it depends how visual the thing is, but yeah, yeah. I
Ooh,
mean,
this is a
it's
good
really,
one.
yeah.
Was there
There's so
was
many
there
ways to
like
go.
right? Was there ever like did you have to see a movie directed before you could draw a storyboard?
No, no, you just read the script.
Gotcha.
That's all. That's all. And the script will tell you who's talking, and then it'll show you who's talking next, and then it'll give a line of description, and they've just given you basically three different camera moves or three different things that you're going to see on camera. You know what I mean? And then you
Yeah.
have to draw them, and
Is
and when you
is
draw them, you
draw
put them in the right framing that you feel is the right framing. So.
is drawing storyboards like wildly similar to drawing a comic book? I feel like it's got to be the same,
Uh,
right?
No, it's not. Well, it's similar in concept, okay, but it's not necessarily. Yeah, yeah. That's about it, really.
It just popped in my brain. Sorry, I think I have a mental deficiency, and that just popped in my brain. Sorry.
No, 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 no. It's okay. We all have those.
Is
Oh,
there
Julia.
is there
Hey,
anything that
Vay.
you can like so you have to sit down and draw a storyboard. What do you do if the juices aren't flowing? How do you get into that creative state?
The flow state that everybody's talking about.
Well, I usually just smoke some pot, put on some music, and do it.
Fuck
Yeah.
yes, dude.
The Cali got that
Now
good
this is
shit.
how
That's
this
your
is how
guy, dude.
I'm working on a film now. I'm just finishing it up, and you really can't see, but this is how it starts. It's just these little thumbnails here.
Hold
You
it
see?
still for just a second because we're a little glitchy.
Oh yeah, I see you.
Oh, nice, dude. See, and this makes me think of like a comic book. This is like wildly similar to like you would have 3 of those on a page.
To a degree, but as you see, he's got like a camera drawn in where it goes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like how you're
And
angling the camera.
then I turn around and I turn them into this.
God, that is beautiful.
With much more
I'm-
detail and camera
Right.
directions. Again, you can see them there.
The arrow going
Yeah,
up.
I'm so very jealous of your whatever is wrong with you that gave you this beautiful talent. I'm very jealous of you. I wish I had that. Jesus.
Yeah, it's madness. That's what it is. It's madness.
You got that Picasso
So
syndrome.
I do want to ask Steve, how do I assume you're working on multiple projects at once? How do you stay organized to
Compartmentalize.
I don't.
Just
No,
everything
really,
all
I
at
don't.
once. All right, got it.
I do whatever I feel like doing. Unfortunately, the people that I have I'm working for, not all of them are on such a strict deadline that I have to do it right now. But yeah, no, I like, yeah, I do like at least 2 to 3 different projects each day. And there's not much yet to do on the Mayan tier because we need the money.
Right.
But I've hired somebody who's put together what I said is a pitch deck. And hopefully that'll go out this week and we'll be able to get some people interested.
I only have one more question. I know I'm good. This is it. You were talking about compartmentalizing. He's working on multiple projects all the time. I can only imagine like a artist,
those people that draw both
drawing
hands and
with
their
two
feet.
hands. You know what I mean? So that begs the question. First off, what is your dominant hand? I hope it's left-handed. That being said, can you draw with your non-dominant hand?
No. My right hand is my hand, and I can't draw with my left hand. I mean, I can draw, but it's like shitty.
Right.
So
Sorry, I just had to ask if you're like doing two
No,
things at
yeah.
once. Like,
So
this is the hand right here.
we have a local painter / artist here in Evansville, Indiana, that is now a world-renowned, selling out art galleries.
with Maddox Galleries.
But he gets all these like magazines, Virgil Abloh, I forget his last name, I'm blanking on it, but like all these books and magazines that he draws inspiration from. Is there anything that you use to draw inspiration from?
Again, I mean, it's all been film for me. Everything in my life has been film. And so,
Are there any big films that stand out to you that changed your creative world?
well, they changed my world, period. There's a few of them. There's the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Bonnie and Clyde from the 60s. Clockwork Orange in 2001.
Such a weird movie.
And, just anything Stanley Kubrick, I can tell you that.
Yep.
But yeah, there's so many movies that I'm in love with. It's kind of hard for me to just pick one. But Clockwork Orange, and Bonnie and Clyde, and 2001 are the 3 most influential films that I've ever seen in my life, anyway.
Yeah, Kubrick's a damn genius.
I could go on forever because that's what I'm saying. I'm a movie guy. Don't get me started.
Dude, I'm looking forward to the Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's directing it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be really good.
Matt Damon, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's going Matt Damon.
Yeah, as the main character.
Son of a bitch. He would. Son of a bitch.
I was kind of disappointed by the Napoleon movie, but
Well,
I
you
didn't
can't
see
win
it.
them all.
I didn't see it.
They made him taller than he was supposed to be.
No.
I'm much like
All
you,
these
Steve. I'm very
factual
busy.
incorrections.
I don't like to read, but I like audiobooks because I'm busy. And I got an audio textbook on Napoleon Bonaparte. And
Oh
I
my
listened
God,
to
really?
32
What is
hours
it?
of...
Is it the script?
No. I listened to
Oh my
like 32 hours of the entire history on Napoleon Bonaparte. And then
Yeah.
I watched this movie and I'm like, oh, they made this guy so just not how
it.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not it.
great.
No, I haven't seen it. No, it's. I haven't been to the movies lately very much. This is one thing I need to do more.
Were you a
often.
Christopher Nolan fan?
Yeah.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good.
Yes, he is.
So
Why
Steve,
do all of his movies have, except the Odyssey anyway, have the word in them? That's one for you.
Have the word what?
Interstellar.
in.
Oh,
In.
in.
Yeah, Interstellar. What's the other ones? Come
Dark
on, guys, help
Knight.
me out here. What's that?
Dark Knight.
There's another one. There's more. There's too many. I just had them written down earlier because somebody was asking
I'm
this
gonna have to
question
look
before,
these up
too.
now. Now I'm.
Inception.
Are we on conspiracy theory row or something?
No, I'm just curious. I noticed this. Everything is in. It's in this and that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that checks
no,
out,
I
dude.
am a
Christopher
big fan
Nolan's a
of it.
gangster.
What are some of your
he-
biggest advices you would give to creatives out there? Not necessarily drawing specific.
What advice do I think he would give?
No, what advice would you give to other creative-minded
Just
people?
creative in general.
Oh, well, depends what you're creative at. I mean, for me, I could do just about everything. So it just depends. I mean, for me personally, it's a story. It's a good story. If you come up with a good story, then you want to turn it into something, and that's really not that easy. So I've had 12 occasions to do it. One of them was a hired situation where the producer of the what the hell was that film? The French Connection. His name was David Shine. He hired myself and my co-writer to write these screen adaptations of a book called The Admiral's Daughter, which was a true story written about 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And, anyway, it never got made. But, that was a really good story, too. Very good historical epic kind of a thing. But, there's all these films that I've written. But The Mayan is the one that I've always championed. It's the one that's got to be the most entertaining,
And I hope through this that we can drive a little bit of promotion. I can't promise millions, but we can probably promise a couple hundred.
I got a guy that's got down the road from us. He's got like $20. He'll put in on it right now. I guarantee it. No, what about like? I just want to kind of expand on Tom's question earlier, but like creatives, not necessarily like how important is life experience for creatives? Like if you're making art, it doesn't matter in what medium. Like, how important is it that you get out of...
I think he answered it, to tell a story well.
But, like, I mean, not necessarily... I'm trying to think, like, if I was a creative, which I'm not, I feel like the important thing for me would be to travel. You know what I mean? You don't have, like, a broad... I don't know what I'm trying to ask. Like a broad piece of advice.
But just how important is life experience to creating stories?
Okay, well, that's well put. I don't think it matters, really. I think it's just a question of your imagination. Because even if you have a good story, it doesn't matter. You have to tell it, and now you have to, get an audience involved and
grab people's attention.
There's a lot of different factors involved. If it doesn't come naturally to you, then it's not there. Right. I mean,
That's me.
My friend Peter asked, go back on all this stuff. I have a friend of mine, musician from South Africa, and he was asked to write about his life story. And he said, I don't want to do it. And he said, they want to do it as a movie. And I said, well, let me give it a crack. So I did. I wrote, the first 20 pages of this screenplay. It was about growing up in Johannesburg. We called it Joburg. Anyway, he showed it to somebody, and that person said, whoever wrote this should write the whole script, which was a wonderful compliment to me.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. So I continued doing it from that point on. And Peter, the guy who said that, wound up helping me on quite a few of these scripts. But they're all my idea. They're all my story, everything. My interior is all mine. He helped with some dialogue throughout certain parts of it. So I share screen credit with him. But again, it's all mine. So they put me in charge of this thing here. So now I'm looking for money.
Yeah, you and me both, brother.
Yeah, well, need a lot of money for this one, that's for sure. But I'm hoping that it's not as hard to do as it would be for anything else because of the technology. We'll see.
Right. I mean, with technology, it should be easier. So, Steve, was there ever a moment there's so many moments along this journey. I mean, like drawing, being involved in movies, storyboards. Was there ever a moment on this creative path where you just broke the tip of your pencil or something happened where you were like, fuck this, I'm done? And you don't have to talk about that moment. We care more about what kept you going back to that pad and paper. What keeps you going?
Well, there have been several moments like that. And what keeps me going is just tenacity, number one. Number two, a limit of what I'm able to do. So those are the two things. and but I just, just time marches on, and as like we're saying right now here, like some of the things we talked about, I had no idea what had happened to me. Becoming a member of the Hall of Fame and meeting a company in Canada and doing this and all this other stuff. It never would have dawned on me any of this. So it's all new to me too. Every day is something different coming up. So, but that's my focus right now is anyway to try to get some money to make this movie, and whatever other projects I'm working on to feed myself is different. But this one here is the major one. That's the number one thing in my life right now.
Tenacity, folks. It goes a long way, dude. We find that in a lot of our guests that we've had on. Yeah.
So let's not forget this script.
And just like pushing through the pain.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I wrote this script 38 years ago. So you're talking about not giving up, You never know what's going to happen with something.
Hell yes, brother. Hell yes.
You got any? Okay, let's do. Where can people find you? Where can people donate to help raise money for this film?
Can they donate?
I haven't asked for anything yet because I don't want to be a crowdfunder. I'd rather have it be amongst some major studios or something of that nature. I'm not totally sure yet. So as far as funding goes, I'll take it. We'll take donations, sure. But the point is, I'm not actively looking for them from the public. I'm going to go to investors for that kind of thing.
So you sold an OJ piece of art that everybody signed. Are you going to sell any of your other sketches in your archive?
Well, yeah, they're all for sale practically. I'm donating 10 of them to my high school that put me into this Hall of Fame thing. So
that's awesome.
Donate 10
nice
to them.
To give back.
And I have, there's hundreds of them, hundreds. So it depends on what you want to, if you have any interest in anything like what I've covered. And being in Hollywood, I've always drawn people like, everyone, Michael Jackson to his sister, to the Beach Boys. It just goes on and on and on. Hundreds of different people. Alec Baldwin, Anna Nicole Smith. I can't even begin to tell you how
Rest
many
in
names.
Peace.
So you're basically, if any of our listeners want a custom sketch from you, message you on Instagram.
Yeah,
awesome.
That'd be fine.
We'll have all your links and everything in the description that we can. And as we edit this, I'm going to pull some photos off your Instagram, but I would like to maybe touch base with you afterwards if I'm going through editing and seeing if there's anything that we missed. But do you have any last minute shout outs? Who's got you to where you're at? Who's keeping you going?
Well, the number one thing is this film, and it's coming out of Canada. Hopin World is the virtual reality company. And all my producers, so we're all just, we're the next step right now. We're, like I say, we're just going to go after the real money. But I have these pitch decks together. So everything is cool. I have so many people I could say hello to. So hello to everybody, Now,
I guess
Scott
as we
Page
close out,
one of these.
Any words of wisdom you would give to the next generation?
Yeah. Just do what you do best and do it as much as you can and don't give up. That's it. I never gave up. That's the only reason I'm still sitting here. So it doesn't matter what happens. Just stay with it. Because I've had some major pitfalls in my career, but I'm still here. So can't get rid of me.
Well, Steve, it's been nothing short of a pleasure. We're approaching probably an hour and a half. Like Brian said, we need to make a trip to California, meet you, some of your friends.
Are you available next week if we fly out?
Sure.
No, I'm serious.
This is where I live. So just let me know if you're ever going to visit here. That's all.
All right. Tuesday work for you?
It's wonderful that you had me on. I really appreciate this. It's very nice of you, and you guys were terrific. So thank you.
I think mediocre at best, but Steve, seriously, thank you. Can't tell you thank you enough. Really appreciate your time, sir.
My pleasure, man. And to both of you, Thanks again for having me on, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, don't hang up after this. We're going to say our outro, and then we'll catch up for a few seconds after.
This has been another thrilling episode of the Days Grimm. My name is Brian Michael Day.
My name is Thomas Grimm.
And this has been Steve Werblun. Mr. Werblun, thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for saying that right.
I got you, brother. All right, hang in tight. We're going to talk for a minute, okay?